I never thought the moonlight could feel so cruel. It bathed the clearing in silver, but instead of blessing me, it exposed me stripped bare before the eyes of my pack. Before the alpha I had once believed was destined for me. "You are not my Luna," he said, his voice cold as steel, carrying easily through the still night air. The words were louder than the howls that echoed in my memory, sharper than the claws that had scarred my skin during training. My breath caught, my heart clenched, but I refused to cry. Not here, not before them. The pack stood behind him like an unbroken wall, eyes gleaming with the reflection of the moon, watching, judging. Their silence was worse than their whispers, worse than their pity. He was supposed to be mine. That was what fate had whispered when we came of age, that the Alpha and I were bound by the sacred mark of the moon goddess. But standing there, his rejection wrapped around me like a chain of ice. "You're weak." He spat, his gaze raking over me with disdain. The moon must have made a mistake. A mistake. That was what I had been reduced to in front of the only family I had ever known. I turned, my feet heavy, the ground trembling under my steps as though the earth itself mourned with me. I walked into the forest, every route and shadow reaching to remind me that I no longer belonged. Behind me, no one followed. No one called my name. That night. As the cold pressed against my skin and the trees swallowed me whole, I felt my life crack in two. There was no going back to who I was before. But the moon does not abandon her children easily. And somewhere, hidden in the darkness, another destiny stirred. The forest at night is not kind. Every rustle carried danger. Every breeze carried warning. I had been raised on stories of what lurked beyond the border's rogue wolves. Rival packs, creatures whose names we didn't even speak. Still, I pressed on. Anything was better than the humiliation of staying. The air grew thicker as I walked deeper, my breath fogging against the chill. My body ached, but my heart ached more. I replayed his words, not my Luna until they no longer sounded real. Just a cruel song echoing in my skull. I stumbled once, my knees scraping against the dirt, but when I lifted my head, I froze. Two golden eyes glowed in the darkness. Unblinking, watching me, my chest tightened. My instincts screaming at me to run. Every tale I had ever heard rose up in my mind, stories of shifters not like us, not wolves, but something else. Predators older, quieter, deadlier. "Who's there?" My voice was steadier than I felt. The eyes moved, closer now, gliding through shadow until a figure stepped into the moonlight. He was taller than I expected, his presence sharp and wild, like the air just before a storm. Dark hair framed his face, but it was the mark of power in his stance. The restrained violence in his movements that told me what he was. Not wolf, not human leopard. I had never seen one in the flesh, but I knew. The way his gaze pierced me, the way the night itself seemed to bend around him, it could be nothing else. I should have run. Wolves and leopards were enemies, bound by blood feuds older than memory. Yet I couldn't move. His presence rooted me in place. "You're far from home, little wolf," he said at last. His voice low and smooth, but carrying a weight that made my bones vibrate. My lips parted, but no sound came. All I could think was how his words didn't sound like a threat. They sounded like recognition, as though he knew what it was to wander, to be unwelcome in your own skin. I forced myself to stand straighter. "My home is gone." Something flickered in his eyes, something that wasn't pity but wasn't mockery either. He tilted his head, studying me the way a predator studies prey. And yet I felt no malice in it, only curiosity. Then his gaze shifted, sharp as claws, scanning the trees behind me. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he murmured, almost to himself. "The wolves will come looking." The words chilled me. He was right. If my pack decided I had strayed too far, they wouldn't hesitate to hunt me down, not to protect me, but to ensure I never found strength outside their control. He stepped closer, just enough that I felt the heat of his presence. "Go back while you still can." But I couldn't. I wouldn't. I met his eyes, ignoring the way my pulse thundered in my ears. I have nowhere to go. For the first time, his expression shifted. The sharpness softened just slightly, as though he recognized something in me, something broken, something defiant. He didn't answer. He only turned away, vanishing back into the darkness. For a moment, I thought he had left me, but his voice floated back through the trees, deep and unshakable. Then your story is only beginning. And with that, the night closed around me, heavy with secrets, with danger, with the haunting promise of what was yet to come. The forest was never truly silent. But after his voice faded, it felt as though the world itself was holding its breath. Then your story is only beginning. I should have been terrified. I should have run until my lungs burned back to the borders of the only world I'd ever known. But I didn't. Something inside me, something I couldn't name, pulled me deeper into the shadows, toward the very danger I was taught to fear. The golden-eyed stranger lingered at the edges of my thoughts, as if the night itself had branded me with his presence. A leopard shifter, an enemy. And yet, when he looked at me, I hadn't felt like prey. I had felt seen. That frightened me more than his claws ever could. The next night, I found myself wandering the same path through the trees, my footsteps unconsciously tracing where he had stood. My pack would call it madness, but madness already lived in me now. The rejection had left me hollow, aching for something I didn't yet understand, looking for me. The voice slid out of the shadows before I even saw him. My heart jumped, and I spun to find those molten eyes watching me again. He leaned casually against a tree, arms folded, as if he'd been expecting me all along. I wasn't. I started, but my voice faltered. He smirked faintly. Wolves don't usually stray into leopard territory unless they're desperate. The word stung. Desperate. That was exactly what I was, though I hated admitting it. Desperate for a reason to keep walking. Desperate for a place to belong. And you? I asked, forcing steadiness into my voice. Why are you here? The smirk faded, replaced by something darker. Because I know what it is to lose everything. His gaze drifted past me, toward the stars, as though searching for a memory buried deep in the night sky. And I know what it is to be betrayed by your own. My breath caught. It wasn't just the words, it was the weight behind them. His pain was real, carved into every syllable. Suddenly, the distance between us didn't feel so wide. You were rejected too, I whispered. He didn't answer, but his silence was confirmation enough. Over the days that followed, I saw him more often. Sometimes he spoke, sometimes he didn't, sometimes he simply appeared at the edge of the clearing, his golden eyes glowing like lanterns in the dark. A reminder that I was never truly alone. I should have been wary. Wolves and leopards did not share stories, let alone silences. But the boundaries I had once believed in had already been shattered the night I was cast aside. One evening, as I sat on a fallen log, he approached closer than ever before. The forest seemed to shrink around us, the air charged with a strange unspoken current. "Why do you keep coming back?" he asked softly. I hesitated. The truth was dangerous, even to admit aloud. But lies felt heavier still. Because when you look at me, I said, you don't see weakness. Something flickered in his expression. A shift. A crack in the mask he always wore. "And what do you see in me?" he asked. I should have said danger. I should have said enemy. But the word that escaped me was different. Survival. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The forest seemed to lean in, listening. That night, the bond between us became undeniable. Not spoken, not named, but felt in the marrow of my bones. Every glance lingered too long, every silence said more than words ever could. But bonds come with consequences, and ours was forbidden. I learned that truth when the wind shifted and a familiar scent filled the clearing. Wolves, my pack. Fear gripped me. If they found me here with him, if they saw me even standing this close to a leopard shift, it wouldn't just be me. They'd punish. It would be him too. He caught the fear in my eyes and stepped closer, his voice low but fierce. "If they come, you run. Don't look back. I can't leave you. Yes, you can." His hand almost brushed mine, stopping just short, his eyes burning into mine with unspoken promise. "Your life matters more than their laws." The sound of distant howls tore through the night, closer this time, sharper. Like blades slicing through the trees, my pulse thundered. My wolf stirred inside me, restless, torn between fight and flight. He didn't move. He only watched me, steady and unyielding, as if daring me to decide. And in that moment, I realized the truth. It wasn't just rejection that had driven me into the forest. It was fate. Fate that had led me to him. The howls grew louder. The night thickened with danger. And standing there, caught between two worlds, I knew my choice would change everything. The howls carved through the night like knives. Each one came closer, echoing off the trees, reminding me that my past wasn't finished with me. My pack was hunting and I was the prey. I turned to him, my pulse racing, my wolf inside me trembling with fear and defiance. "They'll kill you if they see you with me." His golden eyes burned brighter, unwavering. "Then let them try." The weight of his words sank into me, heavy and terrifying. Wolves and leopards had spilled each other's blood for centuries. But he spoke as if my life was worth the war that could follow. I should have begged him to run, to leave me. Instead, my voice cracked with something raw, something I wasn't ready to name. "Why?" I whispered. He didn't hesitate. "Because you are not broken, and I won't let them break you again." The bond between us throbbed like a living thing, fierce and undeniable. But bonds didn't erase danger, they sharpened it. Branches snapped. Shadows flickered. Then they appeared. Wolves 3 at first, their eyes glowing, their teeth bared. My pack. My family. Or they had been once. And at their center stood the alpha who had cast me aside. His presence froze the air, his dominance pressing against my chest like a crushing weight. Well, he sneered, his voice carrying across the clearing. The rejected Luna hiding in the arms of a beast. Shame flared hot in my cheeks. But before I could speak, the leopard shifter stepped forward, his body tense, his stance protective. "She is not yours to claim," he growled. The alpha laughed, cold and sharp. "You think you can take what belongs to me? She's a wolf. She's my pack's, and if she can't serve her purpose, then she's nothing at all." The word struck me harder than claws ever could. But beneath the pain, anger stirred. He had already discarded me. Yet he dared to speak as if I were still his possession. I felt the leopard's fury ripple beside me, its growl vibrating through the ground itself. But before he could strike, the alpha raised his hand, signaling the others. And that's when I saw it etched into his wrist, faint but glowing under the moonlight. A mark I had never noticed before. Not the bond of the moon goddess, but something darker. Older, my breath caught. "What have you done?" The alpha's smirk deepened, cruel and unrepentant. "Did you really think I'd rely on fate to choose my Luna? No, I made my own bond, one forged in blood and shadow." Whispers from my childhood slammed into me. Tales of forbidden rituals, of wolves who traded loyalty to the moon goddess for power stolen from darker forces. I had thought them myths, warnings to keep us obedient. But the truth stood before me, wearing my alpha's face. "You betrayed the goddess." I whispered, horror twisting in my chest. "Betrayal." His laugh was hollow. "No, little wolf. This is strength. The moon was wrong to bind me to weakness. I chose power instead." And with those words, the last threads of loyalty I had clung to snapped. He wasn't the alpha fate had given me. He was something else entirely. Something corrupted. The wolves circled closer, their eyes gleaming with the same unnatural fire that pulsed in their alpha's veins. The leopard shifted his stance, ready to fight. But the odds were impossible. "You need to go," he said under his breath, never taking his eyes off the enemy. "No," I answered, louder than I intended. My fear was real, but so was the rage surging inside me. "I won't run again. Not from him. Not from them." His gaze flicked to mine, golden fire meeting defiant steel. For a heartbeat, it was as if the forest, the wolves, the danger, all of it, vanished. It was only us, bound by a choice neither of us had asked. For but both could no longer deny. Then the alpha lunged. The clearing erupted in chaos. Claws slashed, teeth snapped, the air filled with growls and the sickening thud of bodies colliding. I fought too, my wolf rising inside me, fueled not by fear, but by fury. For the first time, I wasn't fighting for my pack's approval, I was fighting for myself. Still, they were stronger. Shadows clung to their movements, twisting them, making them faster, crueler. Every strike from them was heavier, every wound deeper. I caught a glimpse of the leopard as he battled two at once. Its movements sharp and fluid, every blow a blur of power and precision. Yet even he was faltering under the sheer force of their numbers. And then he stumbled. A wolf slammed into his side, sending him crashing to the ground. My heart stopped. The alpha stepped forward, towering above him, eyes glowing with that unholy light. "You thought you could steal what is mine?" His claws gleamed, raised for the killing blow. "No," I screamed, my voice ripping through the night. And in that instant, something inside me shattered. No, not shattered, awoke. Heat surged through my veins, fierce and blinding, a power I had never felt before. The ground trembled beneath me. The moonlight seared my skin, and a roar tore from my throat. One that was not wholly wolf, but something greater, something untamed. The alpha froze, his eyes narrowing in sudden shock. "What are you?" he hissed. I didn't know. All I knew was that I was no longer the broken Luna he had cast aside. Something had risen in me, something he could not control. The battle paused for a single heartbeat. Every eye turning toward me. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath, and I realized, with terrifying clarity, this was only the beginning of my true power. The power still burned in my veins, wild and untamed. The clearing was silent except for the ragged breaths of wolves and the steady growl of the leopard. Who had fought at my side? They were staring at me. All of them friend, foe, even him. The light that had erupted from me moments ago had not been wolf. It had been something else. Something older, something stronger. The alpha took a step back, his smirk replaced with unease. For the first time, I saw a crack in his certainty. "This is impossible," he snarled. "The goddess wouldn't bless you." I stood straighter, trembling but unbroken. "You were wrong about me," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "And you were wrong about her. The moon doesn't make mistakes." His eyes blazed with fury. He lunged toward me again, but before he could strike, the leopard moved. With a roar that shook the trees, he slammed into the alpha, forcing him back. The fight reignited, savage and brutal. But even as claws clashed and teeth tore, I couldn't ignore the truth that had just been revealed not only to them, but to me. Whatever lived inside me was more than wolf, and it was waking. The battle ended not with victory, but with retreat. The wolves dragged their wounded alpha back into the shadows, snarling promises of revenge. His eyes locked with mine one last time, and the hatred there chilled me to my core. "This isn't over," he hissed. "The pack will never follow a cursed Luna." And then he was gone. The silence left behind was deafening. My legs shook, and before I could stop myself, collapsed onto the forest floor. The leopard was at my side in an instant, his hand steadying me. His touch wasn't gentle, it was firm, grounding, pulling me back from the storm that raged inside me. "What was that?" I whispered. His golden eyes searched mine, unflinching. "Not wolf." "Not entirely." Confusion and fear tangled inside me. "Then what am I?" He hesitated, and in that silence my pulse quickened. I could feel the weight of his truth before he spoke it. "You're like me," said at last. The word struck harder than any blow. "That's impossible. I was born a wolf." "Blood doesn't always tell the whole story," he answered. "Sometimes destiny hides the truth until the right moment." I wanted to deny it, but deep down I knew. The way my power had erupted, the way it had shaken even my alpha wolves didn't wield that kind of force. And when the leopard looked at me, I saw not surprise but recognition. The nights that followed were restless. My body ached with the strain of what I had unleashed, and my mind spun with questions I couldn't answer. Who was I, if not only wolf? And what did it mean that I shared something with him, this enemy who had become my only ally? He stayed close, never straying far from my side. Sometimes we spoke in hushed tones, trading fragments of our pasts. Sometimes we sat in silence, the weight of our unspoken bond pressing heavier with every passing night. But the tension was growing, not just between us, but around us. The forest itself seemed to hum with warning. My old pack was wounded, but they would return. And when they did, they wouldn't come with only claws. They would come with vengeance. You can't face them alone, he said one night, his voice low and urgent. I have no one else, I whispered back. You have me? The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I met his gaze, my heart thundering. He wasn't just offering protection. He was offering alliance, loyalty, perhaps even something more. But before I could respond, the night itself split open. A howl rose in the distance, sharper and darker than before. It wasn't the voice of a wolf. I knew it carried something unnatural, something tainted. The sound crawled over my skin, leaving me cold. He stiffened. They've made their choice. What do you mean? They've bound themselves fully to the shadows, he said grimly. Your alpha is no longer just a wolf. He's something far worse now. The howl echoed again, closer this time. The trees trembled, the air thickened, and dread sank into my bones. I had thought rejection was the worst fate I could endure. I had thought betrayal was the deepest wound. But as the night closed in, I realized the true battle hadn't even begun. And when the shadows moved at the edge of the clearing, I knew with a sinking certainty, this time neither of us might survive it. I could still feel his hand trembling in mine, though his voice remained steady as he faced the furious council. You will not touch her. She is my mate, my Luna, and anyone who challenges that challenges me. The chamber erupted into chaos. Growls rose like thunder rolling through the hall, bodies shifting between human and wolf, the scent of fear and rage thickening the air. My heart raced, but it wasn't fear that consumed me. It was the sharp edge of love, cutting deep and merciless. For the first time, Therese wasn't just my protector or the man fate bound me to. He was risking everything, his title, his power, his life for me. And in that moment, I knew there was no turning back. The head elder, man whose silver hair gleamed under torchlight, slammed his staff against the stone floor. This is blasphemy. The moon has already chosen. Your Luna was blessed years ago, and it was not her. His eyes burned as they settled on me, as though I were poison in their midst. But Darius didn't flinch. His grip on me only tightened. The moon makes no mistakes. It was you who tried to silence her choice. It was you who cast Alara aside. The words fell like fire across the hall. Gasps rose, accusations sharpened into the air. My chest ached as every pair of eyes turned toward me. Some filled with disbelief, some with disgust, others with the faintest glimmer of respect. But then the shadow broke. The air turned frigid. The torches dimmed as if strangled by unseen hands. A howl, low and unearthly, echoed through the chamber. My pulse stuttered. I'd heard it once before in the forest. When the rogue attacked, the shadow creature emerged, dark and formless, its presence blotting out breath and light. Its eyes glowed in unnatural crimson, and every instinct in me screamed to run. Stand behind me. Darius roared, shifting mid-step, his body tearing into his wolf, form massive, black as midnight, his eyes a golden flame. But before I could obey, the creature lunged not at him, but at me. A cold wind struck my chest, throwing me back into the stone wall. Pain blossomed, but worse than the ache was the voice that slithered inside my mind. You were never meant to be Luna. You are mine to destroy. My vision blurred. But through the haze, I saw Darius clash with the shadow. His teeth sank into its darkness, tearing, snarling, fighting with a fury that shook the floor. Yet no matter how many times he struck, the creature pulled itself back together as though made of smoke and malice. Panic surged. He was strong, but this was not flesh and bone. This was something older, something that wanted me erased. And then I understood it wasn't Darius the shadow sought. It was me. I wasn't just a mistake in their eyes, I was a threat. Somehow I carried the power it feared. Summoning every ounce of courage, I staggered forward. You want me? Then face me. My voice cracked but carried, echoing in the chamber. The creature froze, then slowly turned. The crimson of its gaze locked on mine, and the weight of its hatred pressed into my chest. I thought I would collapse under it. But Darius's growl broke through, its golden eyes finding me even mid-battle. Trust yourself, he growled in a voice both wolf and man. You are more than they let you believe. The words struck something deep within me, like a spark against dry kindling. Heat surged in my veins, rising from the very marrow of my bones. My hands burned, light spilling from my fingertips, silver, pure. Blinding. Gasps filled the chamber as the glow grew brighter, wrapping around me, lifting me. The shadow hissed, retreating, but I stepped forward, raising my hands as if I'd always known how. This is my pack, I whispered, though my voice thundered like the storm. And I am their Luna. Light exploded outward. The creature shrieked, its form tearing apart, unraveling into wisps that the torches devoured. In moments, the darkness was gone. Silence followed, sharp and heavy. I collapsed, the glow fading, my breath ragged. Darius shifted back, his body trembling, his skin streaked with blood and sweat. He caught me before I hit the ground, cradling me in his arms, Alara. His voice broke, thick with awe and fear. Do you know what you've done? I looked at the council, at the pack, who stared at me not with disdain now, but with something like reverence. My chest still burned, but not from the battle. From the truth I've shown them, I whispered, my tears hot against my skin. That the moon made no mistake. But as I spoke, I saw the elders exchange glances. Not all believed. Not all would accept. My fight was not yet over. Darius kissed my forehead, his voice low, trembling. Whatever comes next, you are no longer broken. You are my queen. And though triumph burned in me, fear lingered too. For in defeating the shadow, I had awakened something inside myself. Something even I didn't yet understand. And I knew. The true battle was still to come. The chamber was still. The air smelled of burnt ash and fear. Yet there was something else threaded through it, now hope, fragile and trembling. But alive. Darius held me as though I were something he'd died to protect, though my body had stopped glowing. My strength was returning, little by little, with each breath I took in his arms. His heartbeat thundered against my ear, steadying me, reminding me that I was no longer fighting alone. But the council had not dispersed. Their faces were carved in stone, unreadable. The head elder's eyes narrowed, his staff clutched so tightly the veins in his hands stood out. This cannot be. No Luna commands light. No rejected one carries such power. His denial sliced through the chamber, but it rang hollow now. Too many had seen the truth. Whispers stirred wolves speaking softly to one another, voices laced with awe, not doubt. I could feel the shift like a tide turning. Darius's voice cut through them all, sharp and unyielding. You saw it with your own eyes. She destroyed the shadow that threatened us all. Not you, not your decrees, not your traditions, her. My Luna, our queen. He turned, his golden eyes sweeping over the pack. The moon doesn't bow to old laws. It speaks through power, through truth. And today it spoke through her. I felt every gaze on me then, not as the rejected girl who had once been scorned, but as something more. My chest tightened, overwhelmed by the weight of it. I had fought for survival, for love, but never for a crown. And yet here it was, pressing into my heart. The elder spat at the ground, but his voice shook with something like fear. If she stays, blood will follow. You'll bring ruin on us all. For a moment, silence followed. Then, from the shadows of the chamber, a voice rose. A woman, her hair streaked with silver, stepped forward. "No," she said, firm but gentle. She brought us light when even the council could not. If ruin was coming, it was already here. She saved us. Another voice joined. Then another. Until the chamber filled not with growls, but with wordswolves speaking my name. My title, not as a curse, but as an oath, Elara. Luna. The head elder's face drained of color. Fury twisting his features. But he was no longer in control. His authority was dissolving before his eyes, melting under the heat of the truth. Darius pressed a kiss to my temple, his breath shaky but sure. "It's over," he whispered, but I knew better. The shadow was gone, yes, but the scars of what had been done to me, to this pack, would take time to heal. The fight was not just claws and teeth, it was trust. And trust, once broken, demanded patience to rebuild. Still, as I stood, Darius supporting me, I found my voice again. "I don't ask you to forget the past," I said, my words echoing in the hushed chamber. "I don't ask you to pretend I was never rejected. I was, and it broke me. But I rose anyway. Because the moon never abandoned me on, neither will I abandon you." The pack listened, quiet but intent. Their eyes glimmered with something raw. And in that silence I realized this was the first time I wasn't speaking as the girl cast aside, but as the Luna they needed. Darius's hand slid into mine, his warmth grounding me. From broken, he said, his voice carrying the weight of every wound he had watched me suffer, to queen. And for the first time, I believed it. The days that followed blurred with change. The old laws were questioned, then stripped away piece by piece. The council no longer held unshakable power. The pack itself did. Wolves who had once whispered against me now came forward with tentative bows. Their loyalty raw but real. The nights were hardest. The memory of the shadow lingered like smoke in the corners of my dreams. But each time I woke, shaking, Darius was there, his arms steady, his heartbeat anchoring me back to myself. He never let me forget that I was not defined by what had been done to me, but by what I had chosen to become. And in his gaze, I found the strength to keep stepping forward. On the night of the next full moon, the pack gathered under the open sky. The forest stretched wide and alive, the silver glow washing over us all. My heart pounded as I stood before them, the weight of the title pressing. Yet lighter than I imagined, Darius stood at my side, his hand brushing mine. His golden eyes, fierce yet tender, never wavered from me. "They're waiting for their queen," he murmured. I lifted my chin, the cool air filling my lungs. And as the moon bathed me in silver light, I howled. Strong, clear, unbroken. The pack answered. Their voices rose in unity, shaking the earth itself. And in that sound, I felt it belonging, power, love. I was no longer the rejected Luna. I was the queen who had risen from the ashes of betrayal, stronger for every scar. And as Darius's hand closed around mine, I knew our story had only just begun.